Lovely. Right.
Oh.
Okay. It's definitely time to find out more about Melody because
Oh, it's question time.
I've been really enjoying your insights into our writing and the way that you talked about your own writing. So I'd like to know some more about you.
Sure.
What's the first book you remember reading and enjoying?
Oh, okay. I was a real Enid Blyton fan when I was a little girl, and I remember working my way through a lot of The Faraway Tree. I think I was like 7 or something, but I really enjoyed the pure fairy tale fantasy of it. And then a few years later, maybe like I was 9 or something, I remember reading every book I could get hold of about boarding schools and begging my mum to send me to boarding school, and obviously she refused. But I became obsessed with boarding schools for years through all the stories I read. So yeah, very much Enid Blyton as a small girl.
You weren't sort of locking yourself in your bedroom and saying, "No, mother, I can't talk to you until December when I come home for the holidays."
No, if only I no.
Writing letters home and posting them through the
Yeah,
floorboards, that kind of
no.
thing.
I also really remember reading all of the Wizard of Oz. And I remember that because my mum would switch the lights off and I'd sit under the covers with a torch and read them because I found them very exciting. And I think there was like 6 or 7 of them, not just the original Wizard of Oz, but all the others that he wrote afterwards. And I remember working my way through those as well.
I still don't know whether me reading stuff like that in exactly the way that you've just described is the reason that I have to wear glasses. Okay,
Oh, it is
for
for me.
we must have trashed our eyesight doing that
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
oh
I mean, I hate to once again fulfill my role as the less literary, but mine was definitely trying to play Pokemon before there was a backlight on the Game Boy,
oh
using
god.
only the sort of little bit of light from the street lights outside
Yeah,
the house through a
yep.
gap in the window.
We could really have a Monty Python sketch on our hands here with you talking about streetlights, whereas when I grew up in Cumbria, we didn't have streetlights.
Didn't even have electricity, did you?
No, no, you had to just kick a sheep if you wanted something to happen, really.
Oh, under the covers, reading your book by sheeplight. Lovely.
That's now we really are onto Welsh territory. So, Enid Blyton, you caveated it with as a girl. I guess it's quite difficult to be an Enid Blyton fan nowadays, hasn't she? She's
Yeah.
been sort of denounced a bit, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's been rubbished a bit, hasn't she?
Yeah.
But then that brings up the whole debate of whether you can separate the art from the artist and so on. But it's like I also loved Roald Dahl, and he's been shown up to be quite rotten as well. So he's been denounced, and yet I remember being really in love with a lot of his books as well when I was a child.
Absolutely fascinating that you bring that up. The Right Like episode that we put out a couple of weeks ago was on Roald Dahl.
Okay.
So we occasionally we mix in an episode where Nico and I try and take on like a style
Yeah.
or from a literary great, so to speak.
Hmm.
And we had a go at Roald Dahl, and
Oh, wow.
we opened the episode with just saying we're not dealing with this. We're here because it's undeniable the impact that this man had on children's literature and also short story
Definitely.
writing.
Definitely. Huge impact.
It happens surprisingly often that we say we're going to write like this person, and then we go away and do our research, and one of us will message the other one saying, "Yeah, you haven't seen all this stuff, have you, about insert writer's name and the insert terrible thing?"
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It happens more than you would want it to, I think.
yeah, more than you'd hope. Apart from
But
Mary Shelley, who it turns out was just excellent.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But Roald Dahl, Enid Blyton, all good stuff for a kid, I think. I know I mentioned during that episode that his short story writing really inspired me to write short stories. So you've got to just take what you can from these people and move on, really.
Yeah.
When you are writing your short stories or your long stories, what gives you satisfaction from that process?
Me.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm really crap at structure and plot. but I really love and spend a lot of time on the sentence level, where I can spend ages just like writing the sentence, swapping around the words, and then if I'm having a really good writing day, I end up with passages that kind of accidentally rhyme quite a lot. So I do a lot of reading out loud, and then I really enjoy the process of the language on my tongue, like, and the way you kind of trip over the words. And yeah, very much enjoy playing with words and sentences. That's what I get a lot of enjoyment from, and obviously really love that kind of part in a story where you're maybe three quarters of the way through and you're really invested in your characters. And I tend not to plot and structure very well, so I tend to try and be as creative as I can every day, which means I often don't know how a story is going to end until I'm writing the end. And that's quite satisfying as you're kind of working it out as you go along.
Have you ever been playing with words during a sentence? As you say, at the sentence level, and then it strikes you halfway through the sentence that you've just realised you've written the last sentence.
No,
No.
no. I did with Moth. I did write and write and write, and suddenly at one point I did sit back and think, right, this is it. It was just a feeling. I was like, the feeling that came that it was like, yeah, this is the end now. And then I had to work out a way to make that end feeling work and be satisfying enough for the reader.
Was that unique to the novel, or does that happen whenever you're writing? Do you just get that feeling of, okay, that's it, that's the story?
Yeah, well, I think I try to have an idea of like a beginning and an end, and maybe a way to get there. But what happens is, as I get to know my characters, they don't necessarily want to do what I've planned for them. So then I kind of have to go along a little bit more with what they want to do, because it's very difficult plotting a story when you don't know your characters inside out. And sometimes it takes me months of writing to get to know them. And by then, they very much want to do their own thing. And so I have to kind of go along with their story and less my story.
I like that a lot. I like the concept of being led a little bit, like
Yeah.
almost by the hand along a path of their making. I like it.
Yeah, and I think it gives the writing a vitality, because if I'm being surprised every day by things, then hopefully the reader will be being surprised as well.
I caught a fair few reviews of your novel, and a lot of them mentioned that your characterization is particularly strong.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time doing it.
But it sounds like it pays off, which is, if this is something that gives you joy
Yeah.
whilst you're in the writing process, and that translates directly to reader enjoyment and a storytelling method, then that's really nice. I think that sounds it sounds like the goal, doesn't it? To
Yeah,
me,
I read this really interesting essay a few years ago by Virginia Woolf. I think it's called Mr. and Mrs. Brown. And she talks about character and how you define a character not by their features or the clothes they're wearing, but by the way they rub up against the world. So you define the character by how they open a cupboard door, and things like that, rather than. And so that always makes me want to look at character in with those details, those very intimate details, rather than the more so and so was wearing this, and her hair was this color and her eyes were this color. And I find that kind of just makes me a little bit more. I guess it puts me on more friendly terms with them, so then they feel very human to me.
yeah.
And sometimes they lead you by the hand, and sometimes they shove you off the path and make you
Oh,
walk with
yeah.
them.
And sometimes I have to kill them off, and then I cry and get really sad.
Oh,
That's all part of it. Yep.
Right. Now that we're killing people and being sad, I'm going to inject some more positivity, I think. Melody,
Hmm.
what is your favourite novel?
Oh,
An easy one, right?
yeah. I have so many favorite novels, depending on when I'm reading them and what I'm feeling during that reading process. But something that I reread for the third time last year and absolutely loved all over again was Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. And I found it such a perfect work and such a brilliant, masterful work. And again, it's that kind of characterization, and that really, really stayed with me. And I think to be able to read a novel three times and find it even more enriching in the third reading probably makes it one of the favourites.
so is that coming from that feeling that you mentioned before in your own writing, when you're creating characters and seeing who they are and finding out about them, and getting to know them.
Yeah.
If somebody else is doing that on a really high level, is that where that?
Yeah, because I've realised that I've been reading a lot of fiction in the past couple of years, as I'm trying to kind of perfect my own technique. And I find that there are some books that I have a really strong emotional reaction to, where I will literally can't sleep for thinking of them, will feel happy or sad, or will really get involved. And then once the book is finished, I will not stop thinking about it. And it's always the characters that draw me in, that make me react in this very emotional way.
Hmm, I like that a lot. It's it's definitely how I think I interact with novels. I know it's not really in the vein that you're talking about, but the example I would give myself in that regard would be something like Game of Thrones. Like
Yeah,
this entirely character driven, almost to the point where it has stopped the author from being able to create the next book
yeah,
because it's so there are so many characters and they're so
hmm,
complicated and they're so in depth.
yep,
Um, and then you sort of really feel like you're learning about someone real. I don't know if that's sad to say so or not, but it definitely is a really nice sensation because it's one thing being surprised by a plot twist or something, but when something happens to a character that you care about,
yeah.
it
I
does
mean,
stick with you.
have you read any of the Eleanor Ferrante novels at all?
No,
So I read, I think, a couple of years ago. It was during a lockdown, and it was Christmas, and I was on my own, and ended up reading. She's written this quartet, so I read the quartet one after the other, and I got so involved in the characters' lives that yeah, I was almost breathless with it. And I think it was something about reading about people's emotional lives very quickly. Um, and the fact that they were set in Italy and everyone was very passionate and very expressive and unrestrained made for a really exciting reading experience.
were you reading this in Tbilisi?
Yes, yes, I was.
How was the? I sort of hesitate to ask really, but how was the pandemic in the
It was
country?
I got there and the pandemic. I mean, they were already in the pandemic, but then they had 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks when everything was open, and then they went into a really severe lockdown. And I was there for 6 months all in all, a very severe lockdown where there was a curfew at 9 o'clock at night, and all the restaurants, cafes, everything was closed. But then you had to wear a mask in the street. And I realised that for about 5.5 months, I hadn't actually seen anyone's face because everyone wore a mask everywhere. And obviously, I'd gone there not knowing anyone. And normally in these situations, you make friends with people in a cafe or you go to a bar and you meet someone. But all of that was taken away. So suddenly, I felt very strange for 5 months and couldn't work out why. And then realised it's because I was actually really lonely because I hadn't seen anyone smile
Oh,
for 5 months, and that felt very weird.
do you think that coloured your appreciation of the novels? Did you think you sort of gave it a
Yes, I
life of
think so. I think that's why I was reading
Hmm.
so ferociously, is because it was either read a lot or get sucked into Netflix, and I had to make a choice.
I think
Yeah,
it's.
I may have made the wrong choice there, but yeah,
Oh, I got sucked into Netflix too as well. Don't worry.
I think it's something that they're trying to emulate across a lot of other medium now as well, though. That the kind of serialization of films
Yep.
in the way that the serialization of books used to work. It
Hmm.
means that you can have 10 years of, for
Yeah.
example, Marvel films, and then if you were a kid when Iron Man came out, now you've grown to be an adult, and you're watching that character grow, and you know them, and
Yeah.
if you watch 1,000 episodes of an anime, even if it's not great, if you put that much time into it, you're going to have a connection to it in some way.
Exactly. Yeah, you do.
we've actually had a guest on before who was in Georgia during the pandemic.
Oh.
It was a man whose pen name is Tom Marlowe.
Hmm.
He writes comedy erotica, and he mentioned that it was actually possible to bribe the police in Georgia to
Wow.
be able to still socialize a bit, or at least That's how I'm
Yeah.
recalling it. This was a long time ago now.
If you're
Yeah.
listening, Tom, you dog, we know. We know.
I think if I'd even known one person when I got there, then I would have been able to. But when you don't know anyone, you can't really bribe anyone to go and socialize because you wouldn't know
That's
anyone
true.
to socialize with.
Yeah, Yeah.
Imagine the stones you'd be to be in a country where you don't know anyone to bail you out. You just walk up to a copper and be like, "Excuse me, do you take bribes?"
I very much got the impression from the conversation that we had with Tom Marlowe that they'd just be like, yes, yes, we do.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
walk up and say, "Excuse me, do you give bribes?
Yeah.
Would you like to stay out until 10 o'clock?"
They knock on your door ready for it. Oh,
Right. I think back to your writing.
Yep.
Do you listen to music while you're writing? And if you do,
No,
what do you
no.
listen to?
I tried that. I tried that, and I have to write in complete silence.
So how complete are we talking? Are we talking noise cancelling headphones on or
No, just
face?
a quiet room or a library. Is fine. But yeah, I can't. I did try to listen to some classical music, just to see if it would be like helpful and soothing. But yeah, no, I can't at all. I just can't have any distractions.
how much of your process in that regard comes from the? Because I know you've got a master's, haven't you? You did a postgraduate study in
Oh, in
writing.
creative writing, yep.
Creative writing. Do you find that a lot of that translated actually into your writing,
I mean,
or
for me, doing the masters was really, really helpful because it was when I had the cafe, and it was before I thought of actually, selling my business to try and write a novel. But it came at a really good point when I needed that interaction with other writers and tutors and readers to encourage me to pursue it as a possibility. Because otherwise, I don't think I would have had the confidence to try and write a novel just like that. I don't think I would have been able to.
yeah, I think I can see that. So you really took the plunge then. If you did you sell your business before you had
Yes.
written? Wow, that's just
Yeah. I know, a bit
how did that
risky,
feel?
bit risky,
No, not risky, brave.
bit risky. But I think I was at that point in my life where I obviously subconsciously needed to make a huge change. Everything that I was doing was pointing to a change, and so I kind of set it up for myself where I had no choice but to make that change, and I kind of backed myself into a corner, um, probably because I wanted to, but did it without really planning it, just forced myself into it.
Sounds like it really paid off. From everything else that we've been talking about, it sounds like it's a good thing you did it. So well done.
Oh yeah, I'm delighted.
Very much applaud you for that. Um, so if we get back to your appreciation of fiction,
Yep.
but flip it onto something a bit sort of the other end really. What's the least enjoyable trope of fiction for you? So when things turn up, what gets you to just sort of shake your head or put the book down?
Um, I really don't like I don't know how to describe them without coming across really snobby. I don't
Do
like
it.
badly written books about romance.
Yeah, you'd be
Yeah,
surprised. This is becoming a theme. I think a
yeah,
lot of a
Yeah.
lot of the writers that we've had on this season have mentioned that sort of like poorly executed romance tropes are the
yeah,
worst.
yeah. And actually, bad writing in general, I don't like because unless it's going to excite me on this sentence level, I just lose interest very quickly.
Are there any particular, how to phrase this? So, are there any particular examples of writing that you could point to? I'm not saying like a peer or someone that you've read that's a
Yeah,
sort of like a contemporary, but like someone that's famous for being a good writer. So, for example, if you thought Ernest Hemingway was a bad, put together
yeah,
bad prose. I mean, I guess it's different strokes for different folks at a certain
yeah,
stage,
exactly,
um,
exactly.
and I think that's knowing what you like about fiction
Yeah,
and writing is important. So, especially when you're going to create it yourself, like you don't want to be taking lessons from something that doesn't excite you. Why would you ever do
well,
that?
exactly. Yeah,
I think it's it's the old saying of the world would be boring if everyone was the same.
yeah,
And
yeah.
our long-time listeners will know that I've for a while been writing a book about two goblins, which is it's not high art really,
Yeah,
but I'd like to think there are enough odd people like me who would enjoy that I can embark on the writing journey. And I think if you aren't I think everyone should feel like you can take the risk to write the story that you think is in you.
Yes,
Like, don't not write it just because it isn't what's selling well at the moment, or it's not going to be
definitely.
the next Harry Potter
Yeah,
or whatever.
definitely.
So when it comes to actually putting together your novel, so you mentioned that you do it at the sentence level, and
Yeah.
you do it in silence. Is there anything else about your process that you feel is integral?
Um, yeah, I think it's really important. This is for me. I'm sure a lot of writers would say the same, that I write every day, because I find that if I write every day, and it takes me a few months, but once I start writing every day, the words and the sentences flow a lot easier. Rather than, so I find that I need to, especially with the first draft, that I need to write every day in smaller chunks rather than have like 5 full days of work and have the weekend off, because then it's very difficult to get back into that world. So it's just that constant writing and then reading as well. I mean, I definitely would say that I'm 50% reader and 50% writer, and I need to read a lot of fiction when I'm writing fiction.
Did was that a key factor when you were writing Moth? Were you reading
Yeah,
particular things to?
yeah. I mean, to begin with, because when it came to Moth, obviously it being my first novel, I had no idea how to approach it, and the idea of writing a novel can feel very overwhelming. So I kind of I broke it down into, say, for example, the average novel is 100,000 words. So if I wrote 500 words a day over 6 months, I'd have a first draft. And once I broke it down, it made it a lot easier to tackle. And then I kind of I did it in a way where I was writing every day till like midday, and then I would spend the afternoons reading and kind of balance the two.
Nice. It sounds very methodical, but um, in
Comfy.
like a yeah, in a nice way. Yeah,
Yeah,
in an
like
organic
I
way. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't, for example, sit there and structure like chapter one, this is going to happen, chapter two, this is going to happen. So I don't do it that way because I think I mentioned it before. I struggle with that. So I try to have a like beginning, middle, end, and the way I do it is I think to myself, what do I want to say? And I always have to think, what do I believe in? How do I feel about this situation? How do I feel about this time in history? What things feel important to me now? So these are the kind of themes that go through, and then the story builds around those themes.
That's a lot. That's a lot of yourself to put into your fiction, and I think it's a good thing, and I think that's probably how I would do it as well. Is there any? I guess it would be impossible to write it if there was any fear of putting yourself out there like that. Do you feel kind of vulnerable when you're writing?
I don't feel vulnerable when I'm writing. I only feel, I mean, I've only published one book, but I felt very vulnerable when the book was in the bookshops, and I
Right.
didn't like that at all. And I really struggled with that of not actually being able to go into any bookshops for a couple of months when the novel first came out, because it made me feel very strange seeing it in the shelves.
Oh wow.
What kind
Yeah,
of strangeness, as in
like a little bit vomity.
honesty? Right, fair enough.
Sorry.
What marked that as different from people reading it before it was published, like having your editor read it, having yeah.
I think it was just seeing it in the bookshelves brought so many conflicting emotions, and then the fear that no one would ever buy it. I think it was that it's a kind of the excitement combined with like pure fear, and then of course I guess the vulnerability, and if people read it and don't like it, so it brings up so many emotions, that the only way to deal with it is to just detach yourself from it all a little bit.
Well, how silly do you feel now, with your
I'm
awards and your
Yes, you've just been longlisted, haven't you, for a fairly prestigious award?
Yes, which was very
I
exciting.
can imagine that. I mean, that's got to get rid of all those jitters, surely.
Yeah, it
To
did. Do you know what? It came at a good time because it came at a point where I just thought, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. Really, it came at a week of extreme doubt and difficulty. So to have an email about that was such it was just a real kind of the equivalent of a very good cup of coffee. You drink it and you think, right, I'm ready.
I love
oh,
that.
that's a really nice bit of that's such a nice bit of your story as a writer. there was this real nadir moment, and then you get great news like that. I'm really
Yeah.
really happy about that.
So I've got a fun one for you.
Go on.
If you could adapt any book, it can be one of yours, it can be someone else, or it could be Moth, could be someone else's. You can adapt a book into any other medium. What would it be? To which medium? And why?
Okay, so a book that I reread recently is a book called Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey. And after I read it, there is actually a film of it out with an early film with Ray Fiennes and Kate Blanchett, I think. And I was really excited about seeing the film because the book is really, really magical. It's got a very Dickensian feel to it. But the film was so disappointing. And I really remember that when the film ended thinking, God, I wish someone would make that again and make it better. Because it's such a wonderful novel. And I really think perhaps if it was made as a series with like 6 episodes or something, that would work because then you could get all the details in. I think with the film, they tried to shove like an entire thick book into an hour and a half, and it didn't do it any justice, really.
That did used to be the way, didn't it?
Good.
Yeah.
And so, do you feel that novel in particular
Yeah,
lends
because it's
itself to
very, yeah, it's
like a
very rich, it's very colourful, it's very eccentric, it's very unusual. It's got all the kind of chapter hangings, like Dickens does, where each chapter gives you a hanging point that makes you want to read the next one. So I think it would work quite well
Would you
in that
recast it?
way. Yeah, but I don't know who. I haven't.
It's definitely not Ray Fiennes.
But I really like him. I think he was just, the film. I think they just tried to cram too much into a short space of time.
So, what have you got on the horizon? I know you've mentioned that you were writing a second book.
Yeah, I'm working on something now, and I'm literally on the last couple of chapters. So I'm at that exciting point where it's all coming to an end, coming to a head, and I've really, really enjoyed this bit of writing. It's set in 1945, again like Moth, and it's in New York. A brother and sister, they're English. They go to New York on the last day of World War II in search of their mother, and it sort of explores their journey, but also looks at the world at the end of a huge war and the world as somewhere that's erupted and quite damaged, and how people are trying to find their own way in that world. But it's very, I don't like to say magical, but there's a lot of magical thinking. So some of the characters believe in magic, which you can interpret as coincidence or magic. You can, you can choose to read it how you want. So in that way, and because it is has that magical thinking in it, it means that creatively it's been a joy to write, because like suddenly the normal rules don't apply. So I've been really having a lot of fun with some interesting, unusual things.
Sounds wonderful. I'm really looking forward to that being available, which I assume is probably some ways off at this stage. If it needs
Yeah,
to be
probably a couple of years, I would reckon.
a year.
This is the first draft that I'm working on, so
Oh wow!
So
So really in its infancy.
You'll be nausea free for a little while at least then.
yes, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for it.
But in terms of what people can go out and get, they can still buy Moth.
Moth, the hardback is out, and then the paperback is coming out on the 9th of June. It's got a snazzy new cover with some great colours on it. The cover's really good, and the paperback is a lot more accessible and more affordable, I think, as well. I myself hardly ever buy hardback, so it should be out on the 9th of June.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's an important way for people to make their living and stuff, but I will buy a hardback if I'm desperate for the book.
Yeah,
But paperbacks are just infinitely easier to read.
easier. Yeah,
And
definitely.
you feel like you can use them and really open them up so you can get every word.
Exactly.
Also, way less devastating to shelf space.
Definitely.
Very true.
Yeah, and they fit in your bag as well.
True. Yeah. So, in terms of Moth, what
Yep.
actually drove you to write about the partition? Do you have any kind of link to it?
Yeah, do you know, I was at work, I was working late, and I was listening to a radio program on Radio 4 called Partition Voices. where they'd done this project of interviewing the last remaining survivors of partition. So they were all people in their 80s, or people who were the children of people who'd survived. And the interviews really stayed with me, and they were very painful. But there was also a lot of things that were not said, and a lot of things that were only hinted at. And I felt slightly outraged that I'd never really known much about partition. And I'd done history at A-level, but never really knew about it. So then I started doing a bit of reading around the subject. And the more I read, the more interested I got. And actually, the more horrified I was by the things that I read about and the things that happened. And it was interesting because it was around the same time as Brexit as I was doing my research. And it just felt like the world would continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. And that kind of struck with me.
Especially if no one's highlighting all the voices. I know
Yeah.
you've received quite a lot of praise for highlighting female voices in partition, which is not something that has been really done before.
Yeah, and it was because with the interviews that I heard, that the women weren't allowed to speak a lot of the time, and if they were allowed to speak, they were only allowed to speak with their husbands or their fathers in the room. So they would always monitor and change. They wouldn't necessarily speak the truth of what had happened to them, and this really kind of struck. Yeah, this really stayed with me. And then the idea of, like, when you're reading the history books and you're getting all the facts of something, but then you're hearing the interviews, and then you're reading some interviews, and it's like two different stories. You have the intimate personal stories of people, and then you have the historical facts. And I was very interested in putting the two together.
It sounds worthy, and also
Oh,
like
yeah.
it came from the right angle as well for you to get what you needed from it in terms of
Yep.
the creative drive, which is wonderful.
Yep.
Had you spent much time in India before that?
Yeah, I've been to India five. I've been to India 5 times before that, for fun and traveling around. And this time I was lucky enough to be able to go there for a year to write the novel. And that felt really special to be able to go to. I picked like 5 or 6 of my favorite places and spent longer amounts of time in them, like a month, up to 3 months, and got a room somewhere and just wrote. And what was really wonderful is that everything that I experienced during the day, the people I spoke to, the restaurants I ate in, all these little things, or the temples I went into, all these little details went into the novel. And so the novel is a real testament of my time there as well. So it feels very personal too.
Sounds like at every stage you've just been so deeply connected to this novel, from its setting, its characters, that there's no way it can't be good.
I think that's why I couldn't go into the bookshops, because it was felt so
It was like seeing
connected
yourself
to
on
it.
sale.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that's why I wasn't comfortable with it being out there.
Hmm. The
Ironically,
way
I am on sale in most bookshops.
the I love this concept of just going there and cherry picking these places that are important to you and
Mhm.
that you enjoy, and just and and funneling it into this active creation. It sounds wonderful. And also like something that I would love to aspire to. So
Oh, it was. It was just, I would really recommend it to anyone to just take yourself away from family and friends, give yourself a year to write and just do that. And it felt so rewarding and enriching and fulfilling and everything that you could imagine a time like that would be.
really top notch. So where can people find out more about you, about your books? Where can they follow you online?
Well, the books are available in all bookstores. I'm not on social media at the moment because I've been really wanting to immerse myself in this second novel, but I will go back on social media probably in June when the paperback comes out. And I am on Twitter, but I wouldn't recommend it because I only go on there for publishing work. And I do have an Instagram account that sometimes I'm quite active in, but not often.
Do you know what the handle is for people to search for it?
For the Twitter one, it's Imagine a Road, and the Instagram one is just my name.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be sure to send people links to where they can get
Thank you.
your get your social media presence, but also buy Moth as
Great.
well.
Thank you.
Or at least maybe pre-order the paperback since we've derided hardbacks. But this has been really great to talk to you.
It's
Oh,
been wonderful having
it's
you
been
on.
really great. Thank you so much for having me. I was very nervous, but I've enjoyed every second of it.
I don't think we could tell. Like seriously, you were extremely eloquent, and it's been a really lovely time talking to you and hearing all the things that you've got to say about the way that you write, why you write, what inspires you, and everything in between. It's been really lovely. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For magnificent beardery, let's cast the Chinicus folliculale spell on Gary Laird. For rich ginger tones on the scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La, How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?